Okay, so we're kind of, we're going to go quickly. We spent last week, we spoke a lot in details about the fast and not Friday and Thursday night. So we'll go more into we'll just quick review and spend more time on Purim Day, Shabbos, and a bit on Sunday also, because Sunday is some relevance this year, even though it's way past Purim. So the fast, this is taken from Halochos of Chabad. It's like an Israeli organization. They give out halachos and summaries and things like that. I guess similar to what the Quran is based in does, just in brief. So we have over here the tiniest. So it says that the Chosan Kala within Shavuot of Sheva Brachas, or anybody who's not feeling well can ask Harav if they have to fast, if there's a bris, the Bali bris, the Sandak, the father, Moral don't have to fast. And of course, we don't rinse the mouth. That's every fast. Shachis, Anenu was reciting the Chazos Hashatz, and with the Slichis. This year it's Thursday, so there's a whole Vorachim to be said first. Then we have Avinu Malkeinu, Long Avinu Malkeinu, V'nachnu L'neidah, Chatzi Kaddish, Kelar Chapayim, and Kris HaTorah V'echal Moshe. I think we mentioned last week that if someone is not fasting and he's called to the Torah, since it's Thursday anyways, there's Kris HaTorah, it's okay to go. If it will be different days of the week, meaning it's a day when there's no Kriya normally, it's best to avoid calling someone who is not fasting. Before Mincha, we'll give the 3 coins, which are the $3.50, Machzis a shekel. It is customary to give for all the people in the family. And here they mention even a pregnant woman, it's customary to give for the unborn child. And it's also good to train the children to give Machzis a shekel of their own money. But whichever way it is, once we give for somebody, then we should always continue to give for that person. You can't just give once for a child and then the year after that not to give, even though there was no obligation to begin with to start. But once you start 1 year, then you should continue. It's also good on the day of fast to give Esrei Tzedakah, which is the cost of the meal or the meals of the day. Then by Mincha we say Korbanos on the Bechech, Ashrei Chatzi Kaddish Torah, V'echal Moshe. And here, since there's normally there's no Kriya in the afternoon, it's only because of a fast. So one should really avoid calling somebody who is not fasting, if that's the case. And then Naftar afterwards. Then, as like Shabbos afternoon, we say Chatzi Kaddish as soon as possible after the Haftarah, after the Brachas, Yahalalu, and then Shmoneh Esrei. And there, by Mincha in the afternoon, we say Anenu. Every person says Anenu, and then by Shomei Tefillah. And Chazos Hashatz, Shlich Tzibur says as a bracha by itself. And in the afternoon, by Mincha, we also say Birkas Kohanim by a fast day. The reason we don't say Birkas Kohanim by Mincha every day is because once Kohanim had to drink, so then they can't do the Aved anymore in the Beis HaMikdash. So basically after lunch, when the regular drink at the time of the Beis HaMikdash was wine, and often nowadays people also have, you could have a cup of wine with the meal. So, but that's irrelevant, really, the way it was in the Beis HaMikdash. So, sorry, once they had wine, then you can't do the Aveda, therefore there's no Duchanan. That's why regular day there's no Duchanan in the afternoon. However, fast day, since nobody's eating, nobody's drinking, then it's okay to have Duchanan, not Duchanan, but the Birkas Kohanim that we send Chazos Hashatz in the afternoon by Mincha. Since it's Erev Purim, there's no Tachnun, there's no Avinu Malkeinu, and as we mentioned last week, ultimately Min Adin, the fast ends like every other fast, at night. However, since we don't eat before the Megillah, then we should really fast until after the Megillah. Do we need Zmanim, or we'll look it up? Should we look up the Zmanim? That's helpful. Okay, let me just pull up the Zmanim, and we'll...
I think it was in the email from Beis Menachem today.
Yeah, it could be. I didn't see. My website have this money that we have over here. My tab's open, I suppose. Give it on a few seconds. It's not getting there. Okay, so we'll look it up. Forget this man. Let's go back to our screen. So, and after the Megillah, that's when we eat. At night, as we said before, we put on Shabbos clothes, and kids, whatever, some people get dressed up, masks, and so on and so forth. Shmoneh Esrei at night, we say Anisim. After Shmoneh Esrei Kaddish Tiskabel, we read the Megillah. After the Megillah Vat HaKodesh, then we say Kaddish Shalom Budat Tiskabel, Aleinu, and all the regular Kaddishim. And it's good at night to have a little bit of a Simcha and a Suda, and in benching, of course, we say Al Anisim. This is for Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim this year, like every year, has a very special din. It's Purim HaMashulish, it's triple Purim. We'll go back to it a little bit later. But essentially, they're going to start celebrating Purim on Friday like everybody else. And that's going to go on to Shabbos and on to Sunday. So we'll get more into details. But for them, really, Yerushalayim Friday, although they're going to read the Megillah Thursday night and Friday, they don't say Al Anisim. So it's a bit of a strange situation. They read the Megillah, they don't say Al Anisim. They read the Megillah with the brachas, and after the Megillah At HaKodesh, we said already last week why At HaKodesh goes together with the Megillah, because the capital in Tehillim, Lam Naser Chayeles HaShachar, then where Esther talks about reading the Megillah, or a hint of Chazal found there, and right after that it says Vat HaKodesh, and Kaddish again without the Skabel, Aleinu, the Kaddishim, and in benching, since again it's not Purim for them, they're only reading the Megillah, it's not Purim, no Al Anisim in that, in the, how do you call it, in benching, or as well as Shmoneh Esrei, as we said before. Okay?
Okay, I missed the point. Because the Natseach Ales HaShachar, Esther
Talks
said,
about Elakai Ekro Hayem V'Layla, and there is that pasuk. And Chazal said, Elakai Ekro Hayem V'Layla, Hashem, I'll call out to you at night and that day. That's a reference to the Megillah. The whole capital of Natseach Ales HaShachar is Esther, said Chazal. That's the capital she said she davened to Hashem as she was walking to Achashverosh.
okay.
Hashem should not abandon her and so on, and help her at the mission. Now, in that, the pasuk Lakai Ekro, which is a reference to the Megillah at night and during the day, the next pasuk is Vat HaKodesh. So we also do the same thing. We say Vat HaKodesh after the Megillah.
Okay.
And now we don't just say there's that one pasuk. We say the whole thing that comes together, which is sort of basically Valatin in a way, the whole thing, without just the beginning.
Now, why don't they say Al Anisim in Yerushalayim?
But it's not Purim. Purim for them is Shabbos.
But they are reading Megillah on Friday.
That's right. So they're reading the Megillah earlier, but it's not Purim. Since it's not Purim, then they don't read the Megillah.
Also, so in the Gemara, when it speaks about having Purim a day or two or three earlier, they read Megillah but did not say Al Anisim?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we're up to here. Okay. So then we'll go back to, 1 second, what did we do? That's Yerushalayim at night. Okay. Now, sorry. Okay, Friday. That's we're up to Friday. So we last week we spoke more about the night. So now we're going to Friday. It's not Tachlin, of course. Shmoneh Esrei was Al Anisim, Chatzi Kaddish, Kriyas Torah, and Vayove Amalek, which is the Pasha of the end of Pasha's B'Shalach. It's a different than the Pasha Zocher. It says Pasha Zocher we read from Chumash Dvarim. Here is from the end of B'Shalach. We said last week also it's a short Kriya of the whole year. Only has 9 psukim. Normally every Pasha that we read has to have at least 10. It's only 9, but since it's an entire section, we read just like that. We read Zecher. First time we say Zecher with Zayin with the Segel. Second time Zecher with the Tzedeh. And somebody, for whatever reason, did not hear Pasha Zocher on Shabbos, this past Shabbos. when you read Vayover Amalek, you should have in mind to be Yetzev that mitzvah. Again, the mitzvah of saying Parshas Zocher, it's to remember Amalek. It's not necessarily connected to Purim. Of course, the mitzvah of the Raisa cannot be connected to Purim, since Purim did not exist. It's not in the Torah. So there is a mitzvah to read at the Parsha of Amalek. Because of the story of Purim is we are, like it says in Megillah, Vayomim O'ela Niskane V'Nasim. We first remember and then we fulfill. So we first talk about destroying Amalek, and then there's the story of Purim when we actually got rid of Amalek. But so that's why we're doing it this time of the year. That's why we're doing it before the Megillah. But it's not 100%, it doesn't have to be that time of the year. But in any event, if somebody did not hear Parsha Zocher Shabbos, you could be Yotze through Vayover Amalek, which is read Purim morning. If for whatever reason a person did not give Machzis HaShekel the night before, the day before, you could do it again on that day, before the Megillah ideally. We explained last week why before the Megillah, because the Machzis HaShekel saved us, and that came before the story of Haman. Saved us because in the desert we already bought ourselves out. When Haman wanted to buy us out of Achashverosh, Hashem said, that's it, too late. They purchased themselves. When they give the Machzis HaShekel, that corresponds to the 10,000 silver coins that you wanted to give to Achashverosh. They already bought themselves out. So it's too late. So that's why it's good to give Machzis HaShekel before Purim, before the Megillah is read. Our minhag is that the Sefer Torah stays out during the reading of the Megillah. Some people have the minhag to return the Sefer Torah right after Kriya, and when we read the Megillah, Sefer Torah is already back in. Our minhag is to have the Sefer Torah out during the Kriya of the Megillah, and we hear the Megillah together with Tefillin, because it says in the Megillah, La Yehudim Asal Eira V'Simcha V'Sosan Vikar, and the Chazal, the Gemara says, Vikar Elu Tefillin. Vikar is a reference to Tefillin. So we put on Tefillin, and in particular, for those, since we put on Abinotam also, we put on with the Rashi's Tefillin. We keep the Rashi's Tefillin on for that. By day, we said the bracha of Shechianu also again, even though we said it before. It's actually machlekes between the Alter Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek. The Alter Rebbe says we do not repeat Shechianu. The Tzemach Tzedek says we do. And always when there's a machlekes within the same group of people, Tanoim, between Amiroim, between Rishonim, between Acharonim, so we always go according to the last one, the latter one. The assumption is that since the latter one argues with the earlier one, he must have good reasons to do that. Otherwise, he wouldn't argue with him. So, and therefore, and it could be the earlier person didn't think of, didn't know, or whatever the reason may be of what the latter one thought of. So therefore, in the halacha, we always follow the latter opinion. And therefore, here also, that there's a machlekes between the Alter Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek, we follow the Tzemach Tzedek, who says that we do repeat Shechianu by day. And when hearing Shechianu, we have to have in mind all the mitzvahs of Purim. There are 4 mitzvahs on Purim. All start with the Mem, which are Megillah, Mishlach Manes, Matones Levyenim, and Mishteh. So these are the 4 mitzvahs that we have to fulfill on Purim. And everybody has to do those mitzvahs, because everybody is part of the mitzvah, men and women, and children also. And therefore, everybody has to have those 4 mitzvahs to do that. So Shechianu, you have to have in mind those other mitzvahs of Shechianu. To the degree that, says the Rebbe, if somebody doesn't have a Megillah, and therefore he can't say Shechianu reading the Megillah, the Rebbe says this, L'chayr should say Shechianu during the Suda. Take a cup of wine and say Shechianu then. So it's an important thing to have in mind as we read, before reading the Megillah, those 3 brachas. After the Megillah, Ashrei V'Alotzien, Kadesh Tiskabel, Yehaulu, and then we'll continue davening as a regular day when there's no tachnun. Take a little break from those sheets to go through the halachas of reading the Megillah. So just some points about the reading of the Megillah. I'm just going to stop the screen sharing for a moment. And they, okay. So, firstly, as we said, everybody is chayiv to hear the Megillah, men and women, because even though it's a mitzvah, Purim and Megillah is a mitzvah that has a specific time, but nonetheless, af hen al yobeisa, and this women were equally part of the miracle, if not more, because everything happened through Esther, and therefore, they are equally obligated to fulfill all the mitzvahs, including hearing of the Megillah. And of course, children, we educate them to do the mitzvah. The Megillah at night should be done after Sesek Chovim. If it's not possible for whatever reason, Ben Hashmoshes, if it's not possible, even as early as Plag Mincha, you could read the Megillah. Ideally, the Megillah should be read in public, and the more people, the better. B'roiv am adras melech, the more people, the better. And at least with a minyan, if possible, with a minyan, it's better. We also learned that when you read the Megillah, since it's called an igeres, a letter, it should be opened, just like when we open a letter, we open the whole letter before starting to read it. So therefore, we should open the entire Megillah. The Chabad meaning is that we fold it into three. That's true for the Shlech Tzibur, the one, the Baal Kodesh, and for every individual who has a kosher Megillah, also to open it up and also to fold it into three. And we keep the Megillah open until after the bracha at the end of the Megillah. Simply, probably because that once we finish, you don't want to interrupt by rolling up the Megillah after, and then say the bracha. You just want to say the bracha, and then after that, you roll up the Megillah. Okay. Then, you have to, of course, have in mind to be Yaitse from the reading of the Megillah. And as we know before, you have to be careful about every word. Every word has to be heard, and every word has to be heard in order. You can't read it backwards, you can't read it out of order. So if a person has to make up a word that was not heard from the Baal Kodesh, you don't just make up that word and then skip back to wherever the Baal Kodesh is now. You may have to read a few words, perhaps a pasuk or two, until you catch back up to the Baal Kodesh in case you have to read it. Now, really, it's best to have a kosher Megillah when you're going to make it up. But if not, if a word here or a word there, you could catch it up out of a print, a phone, any other text, even if it's not a kosher Megillah. If a person already heard the Megillah, but they have to learn for someone else, it's best that the other person will say the bracha in order to do that. And if not, so then the Baal Kodesh should say the bracha l'shmoy al Megillah, and not al mikra, because the mitzvah of reading already is yotze. So now it's for the other people, they have a mitzvah to hear the Megillah. As we know, we have to be careful about every word, and the trop, of course, it's better to read with the trop. If we read without the trop, it's okay. But the word, you have to make sure that the meaning of the words doesn't change. Two examples I mentioned in the Paiskim. It says about Mordechai Yoshev. And instead of reading Mordechai Yoshev is sitting, said Mordechai Yoshev, Mordechai sat. That changes the meaning. Or the Haman Neufel, Haman fell or is falling now on the bed where Esther was. And if you read Haman Neufel, Haman fell in the past, that is a different meaning. So that's not good. And of course, as you know, we don't hear the Megillah over a Zoom phone and even a speaker or microphone. We can't hear the Megillah. So let's go back to our sheets that we have. So Purim is a day when ideally we don't work. And if a person has to work on that day, it says we don't say Siman Bracha from the work that a person does. Of course, no, it's better to, if a person has to work, no mitzvah to, a person doesn't have to get fired from the job for that. But if it's possible to avoid, then it's better. During the day, and that starts after we said the brachas on the Megillah, in other words, after the Megillah, we have again Mikra Megillah, Mishlach Mones, Matos Lagenim, and then Mishteh. We daven mincha as early as about a half hour after Chatzos. Half hour is min Shas Manyes. Let's see if our screen with the times came up. Yeah, okay, so we're going to look at all the times and we'll have a better idea of what we're looking at. That's for Miami. And it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So Thursday, the fast begins 5:35, ends at 6:44. That's Thursday. Friday, we could read the Megillah. Really, Snatz Chama 6:46, and Chatzos is 12:33, and the earliest mincha is 1:03. So that's the zmanim that we have for Miami. That's as early as the time when Kedav mincha is 1:03, and that's Erev Shabbos after that time. By mincha, since it's Friday, we say all the things that we say on Friday. Haidu, Pasach Lio, Yidid Nefesh, and then after that, we Korbanos, Chech, Ashlish, Mneser, Wilanisim, of course, and Olim. Now, after the mincha, typically on a regular Purim day, after mincha will be the Suda. However, because it's Erev Shabbos, it would be best to have the Suda before mincha, before Chatzos. And it's not related to mincha, so it's before Chatzos, because normally it's best to avoid washing after Chatzos on a Friday. So ideally, you have to have the Suda in the morning. Chatzos we had at 12:33. So that would be the best time to have the Suda. If it's not possible, you could wash up until the 10th hour of the day, which is about 3:28, I think 3:25, 3:28, something like that. That's the 10th hour. So you could also wash before that. And we should, of course, finish, or of course, I'm saying of course, but ideally finish before Shabbos, before Shkia. We'll get to what happens, soon. And if a person has to go, if the Suda goes into Shabbos. Now, if a person washes before Shabbos, before Chatzos, has the Suda before Chatzos, obviously it's too early to daven mincha. So mincha is going to be later. If a person is going to have wash either before the 10th hour, closer to Shabbos, whenever it is, after 1:03, which is the Zman we say we could daven mincha, then ideally should daven mincha first, and then have the Suda. This way there's no problem of being a little shikar, and daven mincha. This way you could go and daven, and also because we're not supposed to make a Suda before mincha. That's halacha. So therefore you should be washing after mincha. If a person's Suda goes on till Shkia, and I'm making a sidebar over here, that whatever we're discussing is not connected to Shabbos. Of course, it's going to be Shabbos, and therefore women have to light Shabbos candles on time, and before that give tzedakah, and of course the blech has to be set up, and if the fridge has to be on the Shabbos mode or whatever, all those things have to be taken care of. That's a given. Here, obviously, we're focusing just on the Suda. So if a person, Suda goes on to Shkia, so then we have to do what's called Peres Mapa Mekadesh. Literally means we have to spread out a Mapa, cover, and then make Kiddush. So, come Shkia, we'd stop eating. So, Shkia, it's going to be candle lighting 6:03, Shkia 6:21. So, come Shkia 6:20, let's say, before, 6:21, you have to stop eating. Now, what happens then? Then we have to make Kiddush. So, if we do that, if you want to continue eating, you have to make Kiddush. Probably best to wait for the night, but you can make Kiddush. Now, in the Kiddush, we're going to say the Kiddush with the cup of wine, but we're not saying Hagofen because we're still in the middle of the Suda, we already had wine, assuming we had wine. So, be Kiddush without the Baruch of Hagofen. And after that, you take 2 chalas, make lechem mishneh, which means you eat cut a piece from the 2 chalas, from one of the chalas, like we do lechem mishneh, but again, with no hamaitzi, because we already say hamaitzi. So you just take 2 chalas for lechem mishneh, give everybody a piece of challah, and you continue the meal. And after that, by benching, you will say Ala Nisim also, because that's still a hemshech of the Suda of Purim. Now, the Alter Rebbe in Shulchan Aruch says that the Baal Nefesh should not do that. Someone, a serious person, so to speak, someone with a Shemaim, should not be Peres Mapa Mekadesh. So the ideal way would be to bench and then afterwards to daven ma'ariv, Kabbalah Shabbos, ma'ariv, and then the regular Suda, Kiddush, regular Hamaitzi, and the Suda Shabbos. And of course, it says, Chacham Eino Bereisha, you should see ahead, and not to be too stuffed from the Purim Sudas. You can have room to eat for Friday night also. I forgot to mention that if a person is Peiris Mapa Mekadosh, then after benching, then they will be davening Kabbalah Shabbos and Ma'ariv. And of course, without Al Nisim. So that's in terms of the Suda. So plan A, best time is in the morning, before Chatzos. Plan B, before the 10th hour, after having daven Mincha. Plan C will be later, anytime during the day. And if a person gets the Shkia, ideally would be the best way to bench. This way you finish. You don't have to go into Peiris Mapa Mekadosh. You bench, you're going to get daven Ma'ariv, then you go back to Kiddush and to Hamaitzi. And if people plan D, I guess we could call that, would be Peiris Mapa Mekadosh, which is really not an ideal thing. Let us not forget to be Ma'av Sedra, Shnai Micha V'Chatagom, and with the Parsha of the week, because Shabbos is a regular Shabbos. It's not the Yom Tov anymore. And even though it's Purim, or even though it's a Friday, I don't know which way to mention it, even though on Friday sometimes we take a haircut or we cut our nails, on Purim it's best not to do it, not to cut the nails and not to take a haircut on Purim. So better not to take a haircut, not to cut the nails. Of course, if a woman has to go to the mikveh Friday night, then she has to cut her nails. But here we're talking about in a regular case. And an important thing, we should check our pockets. Typically, you will be wearing Shabbos clothes on that day. So you're already wearing a kapota, you're wearing the Shabbos pants, and so you're not going to change. So you have to make sure to empty your pockets, check your pockets, make sure there's nothing there. Car keys, the wallet, all the other things that may end up there should be taken out. It's an important mitzvah to do that every Friday. Friedrich actually said that this mitzvah saved his life. When he was imprisoned, at the time of the story of Yud Beis Tammuz, first Friday was in jail, even though, of course, he wasn't going anywhere. He checked his pockets and he said, thank God he did it, because he had with him some a little piece of paper, some document, and that could have been quite compromising. And Baruch Hashem, he saw it, and he was able to destroy that, and the interrogators did not get their hands on it. So always a nice thing to do, to check your pocket, especially on that Friday that you're wearing Shabbos clothes already. So for sure you have to check. Now, as mentioned before, we spoke about Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim has a special din this year, a special way of celebrating Purim this year. So in Yerushalayim, they also don't say Tachnun. They do not say Hala Nisim on Friday. We talk about Friday. After Chazaras Hashatz, it's going to be Chatzi Kaddish. And there's no Kriyas Torah, it's not Purim for them. The only thing we're moving up is the Megillah. So it's a regular Friday. So, but since we can't read the Megillah on Shabbos because of Gzera D'Rabba, so then the Megillah is going to be reading on Friday, but it's not Purim. So there's no Kriyas Torah of Purim. Right away we go to the Megillah. Like we said before, for regular people, person did not get Machzis HaShekel before the Megillah, then now is the good time to do it. Shechiyanu, by the Megillah, and when they hear Shechiyanu by the Megillah, they should have in mind the other mitzvahs that's going to be for Purim. That's going to cover it. They won't be today. Not all of them will be today. But they should have in mind that the Shechiyanu on the Megillah is a Shechiyanu on all the mitzvahs of Purim. And then, on Friday also, they will be giving Matanos Lavyonim. Now, Matanos Lavyonim is 2 coins to 2 poor, meaning 1 to each. Altogether, you have to give out 2 coins, or $2, whatever, 2 gifts of money. So that's the minimum. It's always good to add more, to give more tzedakah, but that's the minimum requirement to give twice tzedakah to 2 poor people. If you don't find any poor people, you could send it. Now you have all kind of electronic ways to do it. Kol Chabad, over here locally, we have Simchat Shabbat that I run, helps out people, or any other organization that does that, and you could do that. Send it to them. Some are machmir also to add a little bit of a suda, to drink a little bit, and also a little mishlach manas. Again, mishlach manas at the very basic level is one food to two people. It doesn't have to be anything. You could pull out of the fridge, a bottle of something, a bottle of wine, bottle of beer, and fruit, and you give it to somebody, and that's mishlach manas. Or it could be two people that exchange their suda. Just take your plate, give it to the next person, and so on. That's also mishlach manas. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And going back to Yerushalayim, it's not Purim that day on Friday. So Mikra Adin, they're allowed to work, because Purim we try to avoid working. But nonetheless, there are those who are avoiding to work unless it's connected to Shabbos. Then, Shnai Mikra V'Chatargum is the regular Shabbos, it's regular Pasha. But then there's two haftarahs. Because our minhag Chabad is that whenever there's more than one haftarah, we read them all in Shnai Mikra V'Chatargum. So they're going to read the haftarah of Shabbos. This week is going to be Tetzaveh, the haftarah of Shabbos Tetzaveh, plus the haftarah of Karim Hashem, which is the haftarah of Zocher. On the day of Purim, the haftarah will be the haftarah we read last week. They also read in Yerushalayim, the same haftarah, and it's going to be the haftarah of Shabbos Zocher. And Yerushalayim too, they should be davening and checking their pockets before Shabbos. And then in Yerushalayim too, they should also say B'mincha, Haydu Pasachli Yadid Nefesh, and so on and so forth. And again, they don't say Ala Nisim on that day. There's no Ala Nisim. So that is for Yerushalayim on Friday. Now, Shabbos. Shabbos for us, outside of Yerushalayim, is a regular Shabbos, regular davening. Chadedi, we say Berina V'Tzala, like a regular Shabbos. No Ala Nisim. We do not say Avarachim Tzeskoscha because we don't say Tachnun Shushan Purim. And it's a good thing also to continue the Mishnah B'Simcha for Brengens, like Purim. But I said actually that now that we daven Mincha, now that on Shabbos we don't have all the obligations, it's a good time to do the Adel Yada and the Simcha and so on and so forth. That's outside of Yerushalayim. It's a regular Shabbos, just no Tachnun, so no Avarachim, no Tzedkasa. In Yerushalayim, it gets a little more interesting. Yerushalayim, of course, Shabbos, so the Selach Hunaran, no? And Chadedi, the switch, instead of saying Berina of Tzala, they're going to say B'Simcha of Tzala. In Yerushalayim too, because it's Purim, they're going to say Alanissim. In Shmoneh Esrei and in benching. And all the tefillos of Shabbos, they're going to have to say Alanissim. Kriyas HaTorah will be two Sifrei Torahs. One is the regular Pasha of the week. And then for the second one, the Mafti will be Vayov Amalek, which is the reading of Purim, because for them it's Purim. That's what they're going to read. And the Haftarah is the Haftarah Pasha Zocher, which is again, same Haftarah we read that last week. They're going to read it. They read it last week. They're reading it again. On such a Kriyas, the Suda will not be on Shabbos. One of the reasons mentioned, the two reasons mentions. One is that the Suda goes together with Meshalach Mones. And since we can't do Shlach Mones is complicated on Shabbos without carrying and delivering and all those things, therefore the Suda doesn't happen then. Another reason, which is a reason mentioned in the Gemara, Bavli and Yerushalmi, is that the Simcha has to be a Simcha specifically for Purim. Shabbos is its own Simcha. It's a Simcha that came from the Eibishter. So therefore, it's now not the time to do the Suda, and the Suda will have to be made on a special day, which will be on Sunday. So Suda will be on Sunday. Nonetheless, that those are Mahadar on Shabbos in honor of Purim to have a shtickle Suda and to give one Mishlach Mones also. In other words, like we said again, you take your plate and you exchange it with somebody else. And that's Mishlach Mones. Some people are machim on that day. Okay. So that's for Shabbos. So really in Yerushalayim, Shabbos is Purim, but there's no Megillah and there's no Suda. So it's an interesting setup. They're going to say Anisim. They're going to read the Pasha of Vayov Amalek. The Megillah they already have heard yesterday on Friday, and the Suda will be on Sunday. Sunday for us is a regular day. Of course, there's no Alanisim, and we say Tachnun. It's going to be a day when we say Tachnun. Nonetheless, the Rebbe writes that it's a good thing to be mishtatef in the simcha that there is in Yerushalayim through adding in words of Torah, adding in Avos Yisrael, making kinusim, and perhaps sending mishlach mones, matanos lavyenim, also a good thing to do on that day. In Yerushalayim, on Sunday they wear Shabbos clothes. They don't say Tachnun, they don't say Alanisim because it's already after Purim. And if a person says Alanisim, they don't have to go back. It's not considered hefsek. There's no Kriyas HaTorah. But the Suda will happen on that day on Sunday, including Lipsume, the idea of getting drunk on that day. It is also the day when they get put on costumes and Mishlach Mones. Says the Rebbe, it's also a good thing. The Rebbe writes two things. Number one, that if people did not give Matonis Levyenim on Friday, should do it on that day. Then the Rebbe adds, but B'chlal, it's a good thing to add Matonis Levyenim also, based on, among other things, by the Rambam, that says the greatest simcha is not that you just spend a lot of money on your own food. The greatest simcha is that you feed hungry people, and therefore it's a great thing to give Matonis Levyenim even more on that day. So really the Megillah goes together with Matanas Levyenim. The Gemara says that the poor people are looking forward to the Megillah. They know the Megillah is the marker to know when they're going to get Matanas Levyenim. So Megillah goes together with Matanas Levyenim, and the Suda Mishlach Monos go together. Basically, right? That the reason why we send food is that people should have what to eat for the Suda. So they go together. Therefore, since the Suda is on Sunday, make it Adin Mishlach Monos is on Sunday, but we said before, some people try to be machmir to give on Friday and to give on Shabbos. And Matanos Levyenim, we don't have to. That's the day of the Megillah. But again, the Rebbe said it's a good thing to give on that day also. And the last thing that we have for now is that some people are noig to say Shechian on a new fruit on that day. And on this way, they have in mind all the other mitzvahs of the day. Any questions or? Okay. So I will stop over here and have a good night.